with another episode of Dog Football Weekly. Here are your hosts, Reed Black and Russ Hiley.
And today we're back with another episode 29, Russ. Russ, how you feeling right now?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Schedule just released. That's what we're going to be talking about.
Let's jump right into it. Russ, you know, all the chatter's been about Georgia's 2023 schedule and how Georgia's going to blow through this schedule. How about this 2024 schedule and the gauntlet that the Dogs are about to go through?
You know, this is crazy. Just the fact that we're traveling to Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss is crazy to me. It's almost like they're getting back at people for saying this year's schedule is easy. You know, Auburn's coming to us, Tennessee's coming to us, and Mississippi State is also coming to us. So, you know, those teams more on the lower end, I guess. Besides Tennessee, obviously, will be a good opponent. But it seems like the Dogs are going to have more trouble on the road games than at home.
Yeah, I think, Kentucky's also a road game. Am I correct? Kentucky's a road game?
Kentucky's a road game,
Kentucky's
yes.
a road game, and I think that's a really underrated atmosphere and also an underrated environment as far as weather, as far as temperatures, and the wind was an issue this past year. But, Texas doesn't surprise me. Ole Miss, that doesn't surprise me. It's just Alabama in Tuscaloosa, Russ. Let's not forget the last time they played in Tuscaloosa. And it used to be that, every 5 years you play in Athens, you play in Tuscaloosa. Then Athens again, then Tuscaloosa again. That's how it went. But, now Georgia's playing back-to-back in Tuscaloosa. And that's a game that, even if it's a lesser Alabama team, even if it's a good team, not one of their great teams, it's still hard to win in Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a really tough game for the Dogs, and, whoever Alabama's got out there, I'm sure they're going to be good. I mean, Alabama's always good. There's no way they're going to have a slump year or anything like that. So, it's going to be a tough matchup for the Dogs.
People are saying, Alabama's on the decline, and I think there is some truth to that. But at the same time, Alabama's still got talented players at every position. There is no weak area in Alabama's recruiting classes. They always recruit offense. They recruit offensive linemen well. They've recruited quarterbacks well, running backs, receivers, tight ends, all the defensive positions, punters, kickers. Heck, they get everybody. Really, they're like Georgia, and they really don't have to struggle as far as recruiting about getting who they want and getting the best guys available. So, even if this Alabama team doesn't have 5 or 6 future NFL All-Pros, they're still going to be dangerous, they're still going to be talented, and they're still going to be a good football team.
The game I'm probably most worried about would be maybe Texas. Coming into the SEC, Arch Manning will probably be the quarterback by then, I would guess. How old's the other guy? Is he?
Quinn's a redshirt sophomore this year. So he'll go to the NFL. I'll most likely go to the NFL.
Yeah. So Arch Manning, probably the quarterback. Maybe not. I'm not very familiar with Texas football, really. So, but Texas is always a solid team. And what, did they come close to beating Alabama last year? Or did they beat Alabama?
They lost Alabama by, I believe, 2.
Yeah. So, tough game. It's gonna be rough on the Dogs for Texas, going into their atmosphere. The stadium's a little small over there in Texas, isn't it?
It's not that small. Look up the capacity for me, Russ. Texas is just a dangerous game. Let's not forget the 2019 Sugar Bowl. Georgia goes and plays Texas, and everybody's like, oh, well, here we go. Georgia just barely lost to Alabama. So everybody's like, Georgia's about to put a whooping on Texas. Georgia's going to kill Texas. Georgia's going to destroy Texas. But and then you think, Russ, what do you got to say about the capacity?
Yeah, the capacity's a lot. I was just kidding about the stadium being small. Anyway.
It's bigger than Sanford.
Anyway.
But, Georgia's – and then Texas came out, and Sam Ehlinger, and a Texas team that wasn't great wasn't very good. I think this year's team is a lot better. They just put it on Georgia for 4 quarters, and Georgia made it close and a little interesting at the end. But that game was really just Texas had control all game long against Georgia, and I don't see Texas losing to Alabama this year. I see Texas winning the Big 12. I see Texas as a playoff contender for the first time, truly as a playoff contender. And I think they're going to be a dangerous football team when it comes down to it. And I think, they are going to keep building momentum and recruiting. They're going to keep building momentum as a team. And who knows, say they go 11-1 this year, make the playoff, win the Big 12. They're going to turn around and have another solid year in 24. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I agree.
Another game, Russ, that's kind of, going, this schedule was obviously just released minutes ago. You're hearing about, everybody's like, oh, Texas and Alabama. Let's not forget about Ole Miss.
Yeah,
Going to Ole Miss, going to the SIP.
Yeah, Ole Miss is going to be a tough game.
Those Ole Miss, they kind of have a cap on their greatness, I'd say. Georgia, teams like Georgia, Alabama, Texas, USC, Ohio State, Clemson, Florida State, teams like that can recruit at the highest level and churn out top 5 classes, they don't have a limit on their greatness. They can be as good as they want to be and as good as they recruit and as good as they develop. But teams like Ole Miss, who, yes, they do get occasional superstars to run through their programs, they are not national title contenders. They are good football teams. They are dangerous football teams, and they're teams that can make runs. But they aren't title contenders every year, and they really don't have the firepower to compete with these teams on a weekly basis. But the scary thing is that they can put it all together on a Saturday and just kill your football team.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely a season buster, if you will, when it comes to teams like Ole Miss. They're sneaky. They're going to give you all they got. Whether it's good or not, they're going to give you what they got, and they could beat you.
Ole Miss is kind of like Kentucky for me, in the SEC East. Kentucky's got – they have good players, and they have really think about like one superstar team, Josh Allen, the defensive end, a couple years ago. Then it was Lynn Bowden Jr. Then you have Will Levis coming through there. So you have all these guys that turn out to be, NFL draft prospects, but they really have a cap on how good they can be. And Mark Stoops, I think, Mark Stoops. He's done really the best job possible at Kentucky, taking a team out of the dumpster to an SEC East. You can call them a contender in the division. Russ, was South Carolina on that schedule? I didn't even ask you.
I don't think so.
Good look on that schedule for me one more time. I'm sorry about that.
I'm pretty sure they were not on there, but no, Mississippi State, Auburn, Tennessee. We've already talked about all the other ones. Yeah. Florida.
No South Carolina. That's the other thing. Aren't divisions kind of going out the window with this?
Yeah,
it's a divisionless league. Yeah, that's a game that you kind of hate to lose. Let me read this. Host Auburn, Tennessee, Mississippi State. This schedule, it's kind of ironic how you flip. One thing I'd like to point out, too, about all these people talking about Georgia finally playing some ranked teams. Russ, you know who the number one team is as far as ranked wins over the past 2 seasons?
Who's that?
Georgia. You guessed Georgia. They played in the SEC championship and 4 playoff games. But, they still played ranked teams like Tennessee. Crap. Who else, Russ? Help me out here. Clemson. Okay, Clemson.
Alabama.
Arkansas was ranked. Kentucky was ranked. Crap.
Are you talking about just last season?
Or the past 2 years.
Probably shouldn't have gone there.
Yeah, they have played a lot of ranked teams outside of the playoff. And this year, they play. What's interesting also is a back-to-back with Ole Miss. They play Ole Miss this year, and they'll play them next year too. So, they play them at home this year, and then we go to the SIP next year. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and another game we haven't talked about, Auburn is always a tough game. You know.
I'm glad that the Deep South's oldest rivalry is continuing. That's something when they said, okay, 8-game schedule, the first thing that came to my mind is Auburn, 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 Auburn. Because I was like, how is that going to fit in? How are they going to keep that going? Because everybody's like, oh, SEC rivalries, Auburn, Alabama. That's the Iron Bowl's the rivalry. But the Deep South's oldest rivalry is a big deal, and it's a big deal to a lot of fans. It's just a big deal to me. It's a pride thing. You always want to beat Auburn, always wants to beat Georgia. And it's a game that is always competitive, it feels like, even though Georgia's really outmatched them as far as their talent the past couple of years. Auburn, let's not forget 2017. I mean, they killed Georgia. And Georgia's really owned the series over the past decade. But Auburn's a team that, with Hugh Freeze, I think the sky's the limit for them as far as recruiting and as far as, their contention in the SEC.
I think Auburn's one of those sneaky teams again. They're going to give you all they got, and they're coming into Stanford Stadium, and anything can happen. I think Auburn's going to be decent next year. To be honest with you,
I think it's hard to tell. I think it's hard to say that they're going to be. I think they'll have a winning record, that being 6-6 or 7-5. They're just a team that there's so much that needs to be done, and Hugh Freeze is a great coach, and I think he can do it. But I think definitely year two, definitely 2024, Hugh Freeze is going to have a 9-10 win team. Another team that we've mentioned about their atmosphere and sneaky atmosphere. We keep using the word sneaky on today's episode for some reason. Kentucky, that's a game that everybody's like, okay, well, you travel, and everybody's like, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss. Kentucky's not a slouch team in this conference, and Georgia struggled for a while at Kentucky this past season. I mean, what was the score, 16-6?
Yeah, something like that.
And
yeah,
a lot of that can be attributed to the weather. It was something crazy. It was like 9 degrees and windy in Lexington that day. But Kentucky is still a very competitive football team and one of the better teams in our conference. So I think that's a game. There really are no there are no kind of like walkthroughs, kind of just like scrimmages on the schedule besides your FBS opponents. Your conference schedule in 2024 is absolutely loaded.
Well, besides your Texas Tech, UMass,
Tennessee Tech,
Tennessee Tech,
FCS opponents,
and Georgia Tech, trash.
Yeah,
they're no good. They're never gonna be any good.
I'd watch it.
I guarantee you, they will never beat Georgia again. How they gonna do it?
You heard? I don't.
How they gonna do it?
They did it in the past, bro.
How they gonna do it?
They did it in the past.
They ain't gonna beat Georgia.
Brent Keys is a good coach.
They got no recruits coming in.
Good coach. They got some recruits coming in.
3 stars, 2 stars.
3 stars. 3 stars.
We got the number 1 player in the nation coming.
He could be a bust. Who knows?
He could be, but he ain't gonna be.
Oh, all right. You heard it here first. Well, that's gonna be it for today's episode of Dog Football Weekly. We hope you enjoy.